Hello everybody and welcome to another fly tying session with your host Scott. Now in this session we're going to be tying something a little unusual for my channel, especially as I've never caught a salmon in my life. I'm not lucky enough to be able to do that unfortunately, but I've been sort of commissioned recently, if I can be so bold as to call it that, to make a display, a framed display of flies, especially salmon flies, using materials from a shooting estate that I've had the privilege of being able to go and help with. So this pattern's called the Balmoral. It's been tied by a few people that are notable on YouTube. Davey McPhail is one. There's lots of different versions of this fly, and it's actually known as a D-style fly. And I'll briefly go into the difference between D-style and space style. A space style fly uses mainly feathers off shooting estates in the United Kingdom, Scotland, England, Wales, so on. So your native stuff that the gamekeepers would keep. However, in the mid 19th century, the British Empire was expanding, and it gave fly tyers access to materials which would be classed as quite exotic materials, such as golden pheasant, for example, which we're going to be using in the tail of this pattern. And so with the addition of these more exotic materials, they became known as D-style flies or D flies. Also, there is an important difference between a spay fly and a D fly, in that a D fly normally has a tail and a spay style fly does not. So it can get quite complicated from what I can gather. And this fly uses quite a lot of materials from both native, what we class as native species, and also species from the New World, as it was called then. So enough of the history lesson. I'll include the more detailed stuff in the video description as per usual. I'll try and get through all the materials. There's quite a few in this one. We're going to start off with the hook. So the hook is a size 6. It can be tied on any size that you like. The example on YouTube that was tied by Mr. McPhail is on a size 1, but it's on a single. You can tie it on a double, I suppose. I don't know, if I'm absolutely honest. You could even tie it as a tube, maybe. We'll see. But these particular hooks are made by a company called Partridge, and this one is called the Patriot, and it's in black nickel, and it's size 6. It's a fairly long shanked hook as well. The other notable thing to notice with these salmon hooks as well, I mean, if you guys tie salmon flies all the time, then you'll know about this. This was a fairly new thing for me. If I turn the hook over, you'll see that they haven't welded the bend in the eye. That's up to you. Basically, they've left that one up to you. So I would suggest when you start with your thread to start there. So just where the eye starts to stick up, I'd start with your thread, and then you want to be quite tight here to try and get that to close as best as you can. And then once you go over the point of that bend onto the main shank, then stop and trim away. Now, in a previous video I showed you how to make a dubbing. So now I've started with the thread and the hook. I made some dubbing using some quite easily available wools. They're not actually wool, they're actually 100% acrylic, but you can buy these from pretty much any bargain shop or sewing shop. And you basically whiz it up in a coffee grinder. You cut it into tiny chunks and whiz it up in a coffee grinder. And I've got the two colours here. We've got a dark blue and a Highlander green, or a dark green. Those are the two colours that you need for this pattern. For the tail, well, it's a double tail. We're using a pheasant tail cape excuse me, a golden pheasant crest or cape, and we're also using the tippets off the same bird. This is off a different section of the bird. So that's your tail. For your tinsel, I would suggest a fairly wide tinsel. I'm going to use a gauge 12 in this example. I have used a gauge 10. If you're using a larger hook, then I would use a gauge 10. If you're using a smaller hook, I'll probably use a gauge 14. The other materials that we need are, so it's a half hackle, it's not a full hackle along the whole length of the body. We're going to need, I use the larger feathers on the cape. The original pattern uses heron, I believe, dyed black, which creates a nice sort of cone shaped profile to the fly, but I haven't got any of that, so we're going to go with this. We're going to need another tinsel for the tag or the butt, and that's an oval tinsel. Now you can use this to wind a double rib if you prefer. I'm not going to be tying a double rib on this one. I don't really see the point, if I'm honest, so I'm not going to do it. But you can use the oval tinsel also to even up the body. So because of this eye, if you tie it down my side of the hook and finish at the where the bend of the eye starts, you can actually even up the body a little bit. So the first thing we're going to tie in is that tinsel, and we're going to tie it up this end of the hook. On my side of the hook. I'll turn it over and show you what I mean now. So that's just roughly tied in, and you'll see it evens up the body. Another material that we use, there's lots of materials in this one, is it has a front hackle or a head hackle of teal. You can use any barred duck that's the correct size. I might actually try a mandarin feather for this one, just as a variation, but the original pattern uses teal or widgeon. So then you want to, as evenly as possible, it doesn't need to be close turns. Take the thread down to probably where the barb, so that the thread falls in line with the barb. So you get the butt of a consistent size. There we go. And then you want to come back up. You want this to be quite neat, this bit, because you've got to wind the butt on it. And you want to come up to where the thread is in line with the point, like so. And then you're going to wind close turns of the tinsel. Now to make it, if this is a fishing fly, then I would probably wind it over a bit of super glue, maybe, just to protect it. But this is going to be a display one. It's the only reason I'm tying salmon flies. I haven't actually got a salmon license, so I'm definitely not the authority on tying salmon flies. If you guys are watching, I would probably go and watch Davey McPhail's channel for proper salmon fly tying, but I thought I'd include it as a video anyway. I have said in the past that learning is not the play. Is not learning to tie while on camera is not the done thing, really. Right, so then we're going to trim that away once it's tied in, and we're going to tidy up. You could get away with using a 6/0 thread with this pattern, but because of all the materials that they're trying to cram in at the head with this one, it's probably best to use a much smaller thread. If you're using a larger hook, then it's different, really. So then we're going to get our tinsel and we're going to tie that in at the head. And you want the silver side showing, so you're going to tie it with the gold side up. And then take that down to, I know what I've done wrong. Cut. We'll go back. I was basically turning the D style fly into a space style fly there by the looks of it. So we'll go back down to the just wide turns, doesn't matter. If you make a mistake, you can always go back, it doesn't matter. I suppose we'll put the tail in, so we'll go over with how to put the tail in. You want one of these longer feathers here towards the bottom of the cape. Pluck it out. Now you'll notice there's a natural curve in them. You want to try and preserve that curve, and you want it to curve up away from the base of the tail. I find if you wet them first as well, that can help you tie them in properly. So you offer it up to where you want it. Now the tail length is up to you. I'm just going to drop it in and do it as how I feel it looks right. Pinch turn to lock it in. That doesn't look too bad. Then you're going to get some golden pheasant tippets. And about half of the length of that tail you want the tippets to show through. And you want a fairly decent bunch of them as well. So we've been over this procedure before. You basically get a decent looking feather. Get a pair of, hold it between finger and thumb. Cut out a section. Like so. And then because of the length of this tail, you want it about half. Like so. That'll do. And trim away. You want to leave some in there. Now if you're doing this as a display fly, what I would do, just to keep it looking nice, is I'll show you a little trick that I've come up with. I mean, I'll just use saliva for now, but so you just literally do that to hold it together. But if you've got some hair wax, or even fly tying wax, that'd probably be better. You can just apply a bit of wax to it, just to hold it in the position that you want it to be, and not to fray and come apart basically. So we'll go back to the stage where we was tying in the tinsel. And tied in gold side up. Pop that in your material, clip out the way for now. Now the order of the colour, it's up to you really, but the traditional Balmoral is tied with the green first and then the blue. So it's about probably a third green and 2/3 blue. That's my preferred ratio, just so that the blue shows through, because if you tie it half and half, you don't see any of the blue in the pattern. So you're going to dub that on. Try and keep it fairly slim. I'm not a fan of thick bushy bodies on these flies, especially the display ones. Now the gentleman that commissioned me to tie this display frame for him wanted me to do so with feathers that were shot on his estate, and he does have teal on his estate, so that's the species that we've managed to include in this pattern. But you could use pheasant for the wing. The traditional wing is tied using turkey. I may have forgotten to mention that. And that'll probably do it for the green. So then you get a half decent size, probably the largest size actually, feather for the body hackle. That's a nice looking one. We'll go with that one in black. We're going to tie that in at the tip. Expose the tip. And tie it in well. And sort of tidy up at the same time as well. Doesn't have to be perfect, you're going to be covering it up with blue wool in a minute. Now pop that in your material clip out the way, because it will get in the way otherwise. Then get your blue dubbing. The original pattern, I believe, used something called pig's wool, which is a very, very good material for tying traditional salmon flies. But if you haven't got that or access to those sort of materials, any dubbing will do. This is obviously homemade, as I've demonstrated before. and that's the body done. I've left a bit of room at the head, so then you can wind this hackle by hand. It's that long if you want to, but you could use pliers. So you want to do probably a full turn there, and then palmer forwards towards the eye. And then do a couple of full turns at the head. And then tie it off. Trim away. Brush anything that's going forward back. And tidy up. There we go. Okay, so now it's time for the teal. I think I might use a mandarin feather actually, just as a variation. I need quite a big one. That'll probably do nicely. As you can see, it's a slightly different colour to teal. It's still barred. And then you're going to use your hackle pliers to find the point of the feather, like so. You're going to get rid of the fluff. Now this mandarin was also shot on the estate, so we can get away with this. They've got quite a few different game birds on there. I'll tie that in really well. And trim. you're only going to get a few turns out of these feathers, so that does look really good with mandarin, actually, if I may say so myself. I'll put some of these fluffier ones out. Okay, so this is ready for the wing now. So I'll get the wing material, which I forgot to show you. This is a, I believe it's a turkey feather. I've had this a few years now. And it probably looks like I've had it a few years as well, to be fair. So you want a piece from each side. It has a natural curve that way, which helps you decide which side of the fly to put it on. And you want it so that the wing bends down the way, and you want it so it's the same length as the tail, like so. You want it to look a bit like that. So that's your left wing, the wing closest to you. That's not looking half bad. Now the better fly ties out there will be able to do that in one go. But we all have to start somewhere. And you're going to start building your head. By going to the eye and then coming back up through the cut ends. And I think that will do it. Use my homemade whip finish tool. There's a bit of background noise in this video, mainly because I'm tying in the midst of Storm Eowyn. It's a pretty rough day out there. There's bits of caravan and lodge flying everywhere. Luckily we're unscathed at the moment. So that's not a bad example of the Balmoral. It just needs a bit of varnish on the head. I'm sorry it's a long video, but it is a very complex pattern. If you would like to see somebody who knows how to tie this pattern better than myself, and who actually fly fishes for salmon, for example, I would probably go to see Davey McPhail's video on this fly. Their video is very old. It's not in much of a resolution now. I think it was filmed in 2009, but you should be able to get the information that you need there on how to tie it if you require further information. It's probably going to need a few coats of varnish to finish it off properly. But there we have it. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the Balmoral. Thank you all very, very much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now.